The elevator dinged, doors sliding open into a hallway swallowed by shadows. Floor 6 smelled of damp carpet and old paint, but tonight there was something different, something that made Emma's skin prickle. A faint scratching echoed behind her, soft, deliberate, like fingernails tracing the wall just out of sight. She froze, holding her keys tight, scanning the corridor. The flickering fluorescent light above stuttered, casting jagged shadows that stretched and twisted unnaturally. A whisper drifted from apartment 612, barely audible but unmistakable. "Don't look." Emma's heart slammed against her ribs. She had lived here for nearly a year and never heard a sound like that. The door to 612 was closed, ordinary, unassuming. Yet the whisper came again, sharper this time, closer. "Get out, before it sees you." She glanced down the hall. The other doors were silent. No neighbors, no footsteps, just the low hum of the building's aging plumbing. Something moved at the end of the corridor, something shapeless, sliding across the wall. A shadow that didn't belong to anything human. It paused, then stretched toward her, impossibly long, curling around the corners as if hunting. The lights flickered again, and then they went out. Emma's phone buzzed in her pocket, an alert she hadn't set, a message from an unknown number. Just 3 words. "I'm inside too." She yelped, fumbling for the keys, but before she could reach her apartment, a cold hand pressed against her shoulder. Not human, not warm, and that's when she realized. The door to her own apartment had been wide open all along. Emma slammed her apartment door shut, pressing her back against it as if sheer body weight could block the darkness outside. Her apartment, the one she thought was safe, suddenly felt alien. The faint smell of damp carpet and old paint lingered, but beneath it was another scent, metallic and cold, like iron and water. Her hands trembled as she slid the deadbolt into place. The hallway outside was quiet now. Too quiet. She thought she heard the faint hum of the building's plumbing, but her instincts screamed that something else had been there. Something watching. Something patient. She sank onto the couch, wrapping her arms around her knees. The faint glow of the city outside the window offered little comfort, casting long shadows that twisted across the floor. Every creak in the building made her flinch. Is it just the old pipes? She tried to reason. Just an old building. Nothing more. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. "You can't hide." Emma froze. She didn't know whether to laugh, scream, or throw the phone across the room. Her hands shook as she held it, staring at the words. They didn't make sense. No one knew she was home alone. No one could have known. A sudden knock echoed through the apartment. Slow, deliberate. Her heart skipped. She whispered to herself, voice barely audible. "Who's there?" No answer. The knock came again, louder this time. Her pulse thudded painfully against her temples. She crept toward the door, each step careful, her bare feet pressing against the cold floor. When she reached the peephole, nothing. The hallway outside was empty. Then she noticed the faint outline of something on the other side of the glass, like a shadow pressed against the door from the inside. Not her own reflection. Something else. Something thin, elongated, impossibly still. Emma stumbled back, bumping into the coffee table. The lamp flickered, then died, plunging the room into near darkness. The city lights were not enough now. Shadows pooled in every corner, writhing, alive. Her mind raced. Am I losing it? She told herself it had to be a prank, a building maintenance worker, someone testing the old security system. Anything but what her gut screamed. This was something else entirely. Something old, something patient, something that had waited for her. A scratching sound started again, this time from the bedroom. Slow, deliberate, like someone or something was tracing its fingers along the walls. Emma's eyes darted around the apartment. Her bedroom door was closed. She had locked it. A whisper came from the darkened doorway. "Don't sleep. It watches." Her breath hitched. She backed toward the kitchen, tripping over a chair. Panic gnawed at her chest. She needed to call someone, anyone. But when she picked up her phone, every line was dead, no signal. The screen flashed black, then a single chilling message. "I'm closer now." Emma's mind refused to accept it. She rationalized frantically, pacing the small living room. It's the building settling, the wind. Someone's upstairs. Anything. Anything but what I know. She froze. From the bedroom, a low guttural sigh emerged. Not human. Not quite a growl. somewhere between a whisper and a scream. The lights in the kitchen flickered. The refrigerator door creaked open on its own. She spun around, heart hammering, only to see it slowly swinging closed again, like a pendulum marking her terror. Then she heard it clearly, a voice, whispering directly behind her. "You shouldn't be here." Emma spun. Nothing, just the shadows dancing along the walls, stretching in shapes that her mind wanted desperately to ignore. Her eyes fell on the living room mirror. For a split second she thought she saw herself. No, not herself. Something stood behind her in the reflection, impossibly tall and thin, limbs bending at odd angles. Its face, if it could be called that, was featureless, smooth, like polished stone, but its presence pressed down on her chest with a weight she couldn't breathe through. She stumbled backward, tripping over the rug, hitting the floor. The shadow in the mirror didn't move, but it had shifted. It was closer. A small, almost polite voice came from somewhere behind her. "Emma?" The sound froze her blood. How could it know her name? Every rational thought she tried to cling to shattered. The apartment that had felt familiar, safe, ordinary, was gone. Every corner, every shadow, every reflection seemed alive now, watching her, waiting. And then, just as suddenly, the room was silent. So silent it pressed into her ears, loud in its absence. Emma crawled toward the bedroom door, desperate to hide, desperate to escape, desperate to convince herself that this was a nightmare she could wake from. But as she reached for the knob, she realized the door was already open. Emma barely slept that night. She lay on the living room floor, knees drawn to her chest, listening to the old building settle, or to whatever else shared the apartment with her. Every creak of metal, every distant thump made her flinch. She didn't dare look at the bedroom door. The shadows there seemed to pulse, black and thick, almost breathing. By morning, she forced herself to the kitchen. The sun filtering through the blinds gave the apartment a false sense of normalcy. Dust motes floated lazily in the golden light, and the coffee maker hummed in the corner, unthreatening, mundane. Emma tried to convince herself that last night was a nightmare, a fever dream. That's what it had to be, but then she saw the note on her kitchen counter. You can't ignore it. No pen, no paper visible. No explanation. Just the words, written in jagged, uneven letters, like someone had carved them into the air itself and pressed them onto her countertop. Her stomach dropped. For the next few days, Emma's life became a tense choreography of avoidance and vigilance. Every sound had meaning. Every shadow could be hiding it. She noticed things shifting slightly. The living room chair would be angled differently than she left it. A book would be lying open on a page she didn't remember reading. The refrigerator would hum louder when she approached. Tiny, almost imperceptible disturbances, but her gut told her they weren't random. Neighbors avoided her eyes in the hallway. She tried casual greetings, awkward smiles. "Morning," she'd say. "Nice day, huh?" They'd nod stiffly, hurriedly. Averted gaze, whispered tones when she walked past. Once an elderly tenant muttered something as she exited the elevator. "Don't stay here too long." Emma's nerves frayed. Paranoia clawed at her with sharp fingernails. She started documenting everything, the noises, the notes, the small movements, but even her handwriting seemed to twist when she looked at it later. Letters smudging as if written over by someone else. Late one night she heard it again, scratching from the bedroom, slow and deliberate. She swallowed her fear and whispered, "What do you want?" A pause. Then the faintest whisper, "Remember." That night she dreamt of the building's history. It was vivid, almost painfully real. A man, decades earlier, pacing the same hallway, muttering curses. A tenant screaming from apartment 612, door locked from the inside. The same whispers, the same shadows, creeping just beyond sight. There was a pattern, something bound to the building, something that waited patiently for its next occupant. Emma woke, drenched in sweat. The bedroom door was open. Over the next week, the incidents grew more deliberate. Objects moved in patterns, her shoes lined up along the baseboard in perfect order, the television angled toward her bed when she wasn't looking, windows that she swore she closed wide open at dawn. The notes appeared sporadically, always on clean surfaces, always with the same message. "You can't leave." She called building management. "There's something wrong with my apartment," she stammered. "Your apartment is fine," said the manager, his voice clipped, rehearsed. "Nothing wrong here, just noise from the pipes maybe." Old building. Emma noticed his eyes flicker briefly toward the ceiling before he hung up. One evening, she caught a glimpse of a shadow in the hall mirror, tall, thin, almost humanoid, but too fluid, bending and stretching like it wasn't bound by physics. She blinked. It was gone. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. Am I going crazy? She thought. Then she found the old tenant ledger in the lobby, dusty and brittle. She flipped it open, scanning names and dates. Apartment 612 had a pattern. A series of residents who had moved in over decades. All left abruptly. No forwarding addresses. Several reported missing. One name was crossed out with a black smear, initials illegible. Emma shivered. Late nights were worse. The whispers grew more insistent, more specific. Look behind the mirror. Don't sleep. It's hungry. She started sleeping in the living room, afraid of the bedroom. But even there, she could hear soft breathing from the dark corners. Always just out of reach. She spoke to her friends. I think someone's in my apartment, they laughed nervously. Emma, you're overworked. Maybe you just need rest. She knew they didn't understand. They couldn't. One night, she decided to confront it. Armed with a flashlight and trembling hands, she entered the bedroom. The beam cut through the darkness. The air smelled metallic sharp, suffocating. Her eyes scanned the room. The closet door slowly creaked open. A voice came from inside, impossibly calm and intimate. I've been waiting. Emma stumbled backward. The flashlight flickered, then went out. She screamed, banging against the walls. She could feel it moving closer, something not quite solid, but heavier than air, pressing against her chest. For hours, she couldn't move. She curled on the floor, listening to the scratches, the whispers, the subtle shifting of objects. Each sound carried a weight, a history she couldn't comprehend. She imagined the tenants who had disappeared. What had they seen? What had they done wrong? Then the faintest sound, a sob, soft, almost human. She followed it to the hallway mirror. The reflection showed her apartment, but also her own face, twisted, eyes wide, hands clawing at nothing. And behind her, in the mirror, it lingered. Days later, she researched the building online, uncovering news reports of strange incidents. Tenants reporting shadows, hearing voices vanishing for weeks at a time. Some returned, changed, hollow-eyed, refusing to speak. Others never returned. There was no official explanation. Emma began seeing it everywhere. In the elevator, crouched in the corners. In the laundry room, shifting among the machines. Even in the lobby, lurking behind the reception desk when she thought no one was looking. It didn't attack. It watched, waited, studied. She tried reasoning, tried ignoring it. But it grew bolder. At night, she could hear soft footsteps pacing the hall outside her door, sometimes faster, sometimes slower, almost matching her heartbeat. The lights flickered. Objects moved in increasingly deliberate ways. Her journal entries became frantic. March 12th. I swear I heard it whisper my name. I locked the doors, the windows. Nothing can get in, but it is here. March 14th. The closet. It was open again. I saw something, tall, faceless, staring. I can't sleep. I don't know who I am anymore. She started recording audio at night. Every whisper, every scratch, every faint sigh. When she played it back, it was always worse. Words she hadn't heard before, syllables she didn't understand. Voices overlapping in a chorus of warnings and threats. One night she awoke to the most direct message yet, etched into the condensation of her bathroom mirror. You belong to me now. Her reflection stared back, empty eyes meeting hers. Emma realized that the apartment was not just haunted. It was sentient, waiting, feeding, slowly, meticulously eroding her sense of reality. Every rational thought battled the growing certainty. She was trapped. And whatever this was, whatever had waited for her, for every resident before her, was patient, inevitable, and unstoppable. The line between day and night blurred. Shadows moved when no one was looking. Whispers spoke when she was alone. The apartment had become a predator, and she its prey. Emma's world shrank to walls and corners, floorboards and flickering lights. Paranoia consumed her. She stopped leaving. The apartment claimed her routines, her possessions, even her memories. She could no longer tell where she ended and the apartment began, and deep in the walls, in the darkened corners, in the silence that screamed louder than anything, something was waiting, something that knew her, something that had never forgotten. The lights went out first. Emma was crouched in the living room, knees pressed to her chest, staring at the flickering shadows cast by the failing city glow. The air felt heavy, thickened, as if the apartment itself had drawn in a breath and was holding it, waiting for her to notice. She could hear it now, a low, undulating hum vibrating through the walls, through the floorboards, through her very bones. It knows I'm awake. The bedroom door creaked open with the same slow, deliberate motion as before. Only this time it didn't stop. The door stretched, warped almost impossibly, bending inward toward the room as though the frame itself was melting, waiting to swallow her. She scrambled backward, tripping over the coffee table. A voice came from the shadows, calm, intimate, terrifying in its familiarity. Finally. "Awake!" Emma screamed. What are you?" "I am the building. I am the waiting. I'm everything that has been before you, and everything that comes after." The floorboards groaned beneath her. Shadows stretched across the walls like living ink, crawling up corners, across ceilings, slithering toward her. The mirror in the hallway began to ripple as if it were water, and through it she saw the faceless tenants, dozens, hundreds, pressed together, all reaching toward her, silent, pleading, screaming without sound. She backed into the kitchen, reaching desperately for her phone. Dead, all lines severed. The windows refused to open. Her apartment had become a trap, a chamber designed to crush hope. Scratching sounds emerged from every corner, simultaneous and chaotic. The shadows began to detach from walls, coalescing into forms, tall, thin, faceless, moving in unnatural jerks. One stepped into the living room, impossibly long limbs bending at angles no human body should. It paused, tilted its head. Its voice, low and guttural, echoed in her mind rather than her ears. "You belong." Emma turned, running toward the bedroom, toward the one place she had avoided for days. She flung the door open and was met with nothing. The room appeared normal at first glance. But then the mirror above the dresser warped, reflecting not her room, but a vast dark corridor stretching infinitely, lined with doors, behind each one a shadow. Behind every shadow a whisper, "Stay, stay, stay." She staggered back, tripping over the rug, the air pressing against her lungs. The closet door shuddered violently, rattling its frame, then burst open. From inside poured a mass of shadows, writhing, stretching, curling around each other like smoke. A whisper that sounded like her own voice said, "You should have left when you could." Emma screamed, backing into the corner. The shadows slithered closer, brushing against her skin, cold and weightless, filling her ears with whispers she could barely comprehend. I remember all of them. The sound of hundreds of voices crying, screaming, begging, all merging into one unbearable pressure, her mind fractured. She could no longer tell the apartment from herself. Every breath she took was mirrored by the walls, every heartbeat echoed back at tenfold. The lights flickered and then returned in harsh stabs. For an instant she saw herself, not Emma, but hollow, eyes black, mouth twisted in terror. And behind her, the faceless shadow in the mirror leaned closer. Emma shouted, pounding on the walls. "Stop! Leave me alone!" The shadows halted for a moment, tilting their heads as if considering her plea. Then the apartment itself groaned, a deep, resonant sound that rattled her teeth. The lights went out again, and when they returned, every door in the apartment was open. Not just the bedroom, not just the closets, but every door she had ever closed. Every cupboard, every closet, every cabinet, each one held the same dark nothingness, stretching infinitely, waiting. A whisper came from the hallway mirror. "You see them now. They see you. There is nowhere to run." Emma tried to scream, but no sound came out. Her throat constricted, her limbs frozen. The shadows moved in, weaving together into a single massive form, tall, impossibly thin, faceless. Its voice was everywhere, echoing through her bones. "We are patient. We are eternal. You will stay with us, as they stayed before you." The walls warped. The ceiling twisted. The floor undulated like water. Her apartment, the place she had called home, was no longer a place, but a living, breathing prison. It pulsed around her, shaping and reshaping reality. Time stretched and folded. Seconds felt like hours. Hours compressed into heartbeats. She reached for anything, lamp, chair, table, anything to defend herself. The objects moved on their own, evading her grasp, shifting away just before her fingers could touch them. thoughts fragmented. Every memory of the building's previous tenants, every report she had read, every scream she had imagined. They were all her own. The apartment was not just haunting her. It had absorbed her, claimed her, and rewritten her past. A shadow loomed over her. Tall, thin, faceless. It extended a hand, not to strike, but to touch. Coldness seeped into her bones, into her mind, dissolving the boundaries between self and shadow. She felt her identity slipping, memories of herself scattering into the darkness around her. "Please, no," she whispered, barely conscious. "You are ours," it said, and then silence. But not ordinary silence. Silence weighted with presence, with history, with the inevitability of what had come before. Emma could feel the building around her, alive, breathing, closing in. She tried to move, to scream, to resist, but her body was no longer hers. From the corner of the living room, a whisper, barely audible, carried through the darkness. "Welcome home, Emma, forever." The lights flickered one final time. In that moment, she saw the reflection in the hallway mirror. Not her face, but hundreds of faces, hollow-eyed, twisted in silent terror. Faces she now belonged to, faces that had been absorbed into the building before her. And in the corner, a tall, faceless shadow watched, patient, eternal, and waiting for the next tenant. Her vision dimmed. The room seemed to stretch forever. Every sound, every movement, every shadow belonged to the apartment now. Emma's body went rigid. Her mind fractured completely. The building exhaled, and the apartment returned to stillness. Days, or maybe weeks, passed. Emma no longer kept track. The apartment had returned to its ordinary rhythms, the hum of the pipes, the distant sirens from the city, the occasional thud from upstairs. Everything seemed normal, but Emma knew better. She had been changed, remade, absorbed into something far larger than herself. The neighbors continued their quiet avoidance. The elevator hummed softly, doors opening and closing without anyone inside. But now, when Emma walked the halls, she felt a shift in the air. A subtle pressure, a watchful presence, not from outside but from the walls themselves. She tried to leave the apartment, tried to run, but every attempt ended the same way. A dead elevator, a door that refused to latch, the faint whisper brushing her ear. "You can't leave." She stopped trying. Now, she moved through the apartment with careful precision, a choreography of survival. She didn't touch objects that had shifted. She avoided mirrors. She slept only in the living room, knees pressed to chest, waiting for the building to breathe, to whisper, to remind her she was not alone. Her journal lay on the coffee table, pages filled with frantic writing, some legible, some twisted by trembling hands and unseen influence. She tried to document, to understand, to hold on to some fragment of reality. But the words blurred. Letters shifted when she looked away, forming sentences she had never written. "We are patient. We are eternal. You belong now." One evening, Emma noticed something in the mirror. Not her reflection, something else. Shadows curling behind her reflection, moving independently, mimicking gestures she had never made. They were patient, waiting for her attention, watching her. Their faceless forms reminded her of the tenants before her, absorbed, claimed, forgotten. Her phone buzzed. She didn't check it. She didn't dare. The messages never stopped. Sometimes she could hear fragments of whispered words through it, even when the screen was dead. "Do you remember them? Do you remember who you were?" Her friends called. They asked if she was okay. She lied. "I'm fine," she said, voice tight, brittle. But they didn't press. She had become invisible, a ghost among the living. The apartment had claimed that too, her existence, her presence outside these walls, erased in subtle, unnoticed ways. One night, she walked the halls slowly, a ritual she didn't understand but could not avoid. The floorboards groaned beneath her feet. A whisper drifted from the end of the corridor. "They are waiting. They see you." In the living room, she paused by the mirror. The reflection shimmered slightly like water disturbed by a pebble. For a fraction of a second, she glimpsed herself as she had been, ordinary, terrified, alive. Then it was gone. The mirror returned to its warped, dark surface. Behind her, a shadow lingered, thin, faceless, patient. She spoke softly, almost to herself. I remember. I remember them all." The whisper returned. "Good. Now you are one of us." Emma felt a chill crawl through her bones. Her body, once her own, now moved of its own accord. She walked to the window and gazed at the city below. People moved oblivious, carrying on their lives. But she knew what they couldn't see, what they could not understand. The apartment waited. The building watched, and it would always claim. The lights flickered and she felt a hand, not flesh, not warm, pressed gently against her shoulder. She didn't flinch. She didn't move. Resistance had been useless for so long. Instead, she whispered almost reverently, "I understand." The apartment exhaled softly. Silence fell, thick and complete, but Emma felt it in her chest, in her lungs, in her mind. She was no longer a tenant. She was part of it, a keeper of its memory, a witness to its patience. Days bled into nights. The building hummed, breathed, shifted. Emma moved quietly through its rooms, careful not to disrupt the order it required. Every shadow was familiar now, every whisper part of her. And yet, in the corner of her mind, a fragment of fear remained, a sliver of who she had been. A memory of screaming, of fleeing, of trying to fight. It flickered and died under the weight of the building's presence. One evening, the elevator opened, doors sliding aside without a sound. Emma stepped in. The car moved, smoothly, silently, stopping at each floor. She pressed the button for the lobby. The doors opened. She walked out. The building remained behind her, its presence stretching into the walls, the floors, the ceilings, reaching into the streets beyond. And as she exited, she knew. The apartment would wait for the next tenant. Patient, eternal, hungry, she looked back once. The windows glimmered faintly, reflecting the city lights. For a moment, the dark shape of a faceless figure lingered behind the glass. And then it disappeared, dissolving into the shadows. Emma walked forward, hollow-eyed, hollow-hearted, changed forever. Outside, the city moved indifferent. Inside, the apartment waited, breathing, patient as ever. And somewhere, faintly, almost inaudible, a whisper floated through the air. "You are not alone." "Never alone. We remember. We wait. Always." She did not respond. She could not, and the building remained.